Hello again. A concern that everyone has when they trying to release your game is where and how much costs to release my server on the cloud. Here I have an option called Voot, which is a cheaper option to release your multiplayer server, to not use the giants, the big techs like Google, Amazon, or Azure. Okay, here you can release your game into around of the world and with different distribution of operating systems. But I wish to put a spotlight into this. When you release your game, you need to choose, I'm going to release a server to run on Windows machines or into Linux machines. When you try to run into Windows machine, you need to handle with some extra costs. Let me explain. I selected the cheaper version of the Voot, okay? And they cost me $6 a month. If I select some type of Windows, they cost me more, $20. This happens because the Windows takes more resource to run than the Linux, and because the providers need to handle with the cost of the license. This is why a release you need to think about to release your server under the Linux, not your game, but your server. Your game could run everywhere in Linux, Windows, or whatever, but your servers would be a better option if they run under Linux. But do I need to handle with the Linux? I don't know how to handle with the Linux. Linux is a pretty complex thing that not everyone knows how to handle. So this is where the ObjectNet can provide an efficient solution to you. I'm going to approach the steps to create and release your multiplayer game on server on Linux using Dockers. If you don't know what is Dockers, I recommend to check into the docker.io, a documentation about how Dockers works. But in short, Dockers provide a way to run a subsystem inside another operational system. And what we're going to do right now is compile our server and put inside a Docker container and then publish it wherever we wish, in Voot, Amazon, Google, Azure, or your friend, whatever. Anyone could get your Docker and run with your server, okay? So the first step that we're going to do is compile our server to run on Linux, okay? First, I'm going to configure my server to work as server, okay? And I'm going to put relay, okay? Server relay or authoritative or whatever, and connected start to start the connection when my game starts. I'm going to put a delay just to 4 seconds here, no, 3 seconds, 2 seconds, okay? So, and then I prepared my server to run on Docker. I'm going to save project, and then I need to switch my project to run on Linux, okay? The first thing I'm going to change to dedicated server and switch platform. The system is going to recompile and change my target platform to dedicated server. Let's close the Visual Studio because I missaid open it. Okay, let's compile. I'm going to pause. Okay, now I'm back. It's change just made, and then I need to change the target platform to Linux. Okay, this will recompile my game to run on Linux. I could do this in Windows platforms either, but the system is going to compile my server to run on Linux, okay? So, okay, it's target to Linux. I'm going to check. I have my scene here. It's the scene that we will load it when the game starts, and I could build. Let me check here, everything's okay. Just to not have to rebuild. Server, connected start, relay mode. Okay, perfect. I could handle with authoritative or whatever. Build, and then I'm going to choose a build. I have already a previous build version, but you could create, I recommend to create a separate builder for Windows Server and for Linux Server. Okay, then I'm going to save and replace it and let the Unity compile my game. This will generate a server version of my game, okay? But to run on Linux. I will be unable to run on Windows because I'm into the Windows operational system, but now it's compiled, okay? I have my version here, okay? Now I have 3 files that I'm going to share on the Discord channel to create your own Docker, which is build Docker, execute Docker, and clear, just to clear, and upload. I'm going to explain details every one of those files, okay? But the most important file is the Docker Compose. The Docker Compose is the file that prepare the Docker. Think into Docker like a bake process, where I get my game, put inside some container, and then I have like something like a zip file, but just a rough approximation. But the Docker is a container that I can run in other operational systems. So, but before to run in Docker, I have to install the Docker desktop on Windows and running. And if I check here, I have the Docker desktop running, okay? I can restart or pause, and I haven't any image or containers here, okay? So, but let's check the Docker Compose file. The Docker Compose file is taking an Ubuntu version. I chose this version, but you could get a more later version, okay? And create a server folder, then copy the content of build Linux server, which is this folder. Is the reason because they must be placed in this hierarchy, those files, okay? The bat files must be into the same level of the build, okay? And then use the same name. If you decide to change your build folder, you have to go to this and change the Docker file, okay? To target to your own builder. If you change here, okay? And then I expose the ports that I exposed into my Unity server. If I check here, it's the same ports, same port, okay? For UDP and TCP. And then I install the dependency, okay? After this, I run the entry point, which is the Linux version of my server. So let's build, just execute, and let's wait to the Docker compile my distribution. This may take more or less time because they need to, depending on your connection, they must to download the distribution that I used, which is Ubuntu, and then prepare the Docker. I'm going to pause. No, I'm going to leave to check how long this will take. And then export the layers, okay? And then my Docker is prepared, okay? If I go to my Docker container, I could check that I have image here, okay? ObjectNet server. So is this, okay? If I try to run my Docker server, which this bat file is just run, and my game is running, okay? I started, and this looks like everything's okay. The shader, the window, the Unity shader message, but my game was started. If I go try to run here, and I'm going to put as client only, just to test, okay? And then let not connected started, not manual, okay? So let's put a scene here just to not have to open another window. And then I'm going to pause, sorry, to start, okay? Let me check here. And then start client. Voila, I've connected into the server. If I check here, I have client connected into the Docker container. Okay? This allows me to send this Docker to any Docker service and then push into, I can push to any to Docker IO to store into the cloud, and then into my instance, pull this Docker and run. I don't need to install, just pull this Docker and make it run, okay? But as you can see, I control, my multiplayer is working, okay? I connected, and if you check, if I disconnect, The client will be disconnected here. Just 1 second to disconnect detection happens. I think that I put look disconnected. Okay, they detected disconnection. So it's pretty easier. And let's take a look into other files. Okay, and upload Docker. This is important to try to upload. For example, you need to create your account into the Docker IO. This Docker Hub. This is looks like a storage of Dockers. You can let me connect with my account here. If you check, I have some Dockers running here. This allow me to push my. Let's suppose that I try to push my server here. I can, for example, close server, cmd, and then Docker pull online object dot slash. Let me check what is the name that I. Oh, sorry, overshot. Oh, they're going to use the last, and then I pushed my Docker, which is into the cloud. I could do this into any server, Windows or Vault or Amazon or Azure or I don't know, Google, which you will use the same instance that I deployed. This is pretty useful because I don't need to take care with if to installation or whatever. I have some type of prepared, baked application to run. I don't need to configure anything, okay? I'm going to share those files on my Discord channel, and you can follow these steps to create your own Docker service and run into any other cloud service that you wish. I hope that I had been clear, and I will see you into the next videos.